To master carbon accounting, there is one equation you need to know. Total emissions equal your activity data multiplied by an emission factor. Every inventory boils down to two variables. Activity data is your receipt, the raw quantity consumed, like diesel or electricity. The emission factor is the environmental price tag, showing CO2 released per unit. Multiply them for total emissions, reported in CO2e, carbon accounting's universal currency. At its core, carbon accounting is a specialized form of financial bookkeeping. You are simply tracking pollution instead of dollars. Scope 1 covers direct emissions, like fuel burned by a company's trucks. If they consume 500 liters, that is your activity data, multiplied by the standard diesel emission factor, 2.68 kilograms of CO2 per liter. The liters cancel, leaving 1,340 kilograms of CO2. Now, consider the electricity keeping the warehouse lights on. This is Scope 2, purchased power. The warehouse uses 2,000 kilowatt hours of grid electricity. With a local grid emission factor of 0.82 kilograms of CO2 per kilowatt hour, the math gives us 1,640 kilograms of CO2. The math is identical. The distinction between Scope 1 and Scope 2 depends entirely on ownership. Scope 1 is the fuel you burn yourself. Scope 2 is the fuel someone else burns to generate your electricity. Let's test this framework on a business flight covering 1,000 kilometers with an aviation emission factor of 0.15 kilograms of CO2 per kilometer. Take a moment. What is the total footprint of that flight, and which scope is it? Multiplying distance by the emission factor yields 150 kilograms of CO2. Because the company bought a ticket rather than owning the airplane, this falls under Scope 3. Scope 3 captures the wider value chain. It measures the climate impact of your suppliers, your employee travel, and the eventual use of the products you sell. To draft our final corporate inventory, we compile our direct operations. Adding our Scope 1 vehicle emissions to our Scope 2 electricity gives us a total of 2,980 kilograms of CO2. But standard corporate disclosures do not accept kilograms. The required metric is tons. To complete the report, we divide our kilogram total by 1,000, giving us a final footprint of 2.98 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. That workflow is your complete template. Find your activity data, apply the right emission factor, check your units, and categorize by scope. When reviewing your ledgers, always check for mismatched units, outdated emission factors, or misclassifying a vendor's emission as your own direct Scope 1. By systematically applying that single equation across every facility, fleet, and supplier, you can accurately distill a complex global operation into a clear, auditable climate footprint.